Hello, and in today's tutorial I'm going to go over a small set of entities that, when combined, are actually quite useful for some effects or mechanics in game. So, to start this thing off, I'm going to add a couple logic timers. One to count up, one to count down. Well, at least to fire the outputs to count up and count down. Okay. Let's go ahead and give these a name. Incrementer. And Decrementer. I think I just butchered the spelling. Okay. Next up, we're going to need to have something to count and use some math here. The math counter. Center that off. Alright, and let's give it the counter. There we go. And let's give this a maximum value of 3. Give ourselves 4 states here. So we'll start at state 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, for a total of 4 states. We're going to start off at 0 and just kind of bounce around from there. So, that there, and now I'm going to have the counter send an input to a logic case, and then depending on what value the counter currently has, the logic case will choose the appropriate set of outputs, should we have more than one. Well, I guess you could also say that. Oh, and there goes WinSat. 1 second here. Force it, WinSat.exe. I think it's WinSat.exe. Oh, completely ignored it. Great. Windows, you fail me. Again. Alright, now where was I? Ah, yes. Having a logic case. So the logic case is going to hold all the outputs we want to have at each stage. So from 0, 1, 2, 3, we're going to fire 4 different outputs and have them go through. The case is what's going to choose them. The counter is there only to tell the case which one to choose. So, topic of choosing, I'm going to call it chooser. Case 1, 0. Case 2, 1. Case 3, 2. Case 4, 3. Now, I got those numbers from the math counter we have here. The minimum legal value of 0 and maximum legal value of 3. So, minimum of 0 is case 1. Maximum of 3 is case 4. Okay, and now things we want to affect. I'm going to be using overlays. So we're going to have a little ping pong thing going on. We're just going to have it move back and forth. So, I want indicator panel. Lights floor, lights wall, they look exactly the same. Of course the VMTs may differ. Somehow, somewhere. Good song. Alright, let's apply that there, and I'm going to cut this in overlay down to only one of the indicator lights. And to do that, I'm going to change the U mapping N to 1/4, 0.25. And now I'm going to put it on grid and shrink the grid size down. And bring it down to 16. And as you can see, no distortion. And it looks okay. Grid back up. And go ahead and copy this. I am shift dragging the copy it, and now I'm left control, left clicking to select them all and offset them a bit. It's a really big room, I really don't need it, but don't need all that space. Okay. first overlay I'm going to call 1. I guess. Okay, overlay 1. Probably a more descriptive name. Descriptive names are very useful unless you wish to obfuscate your map from the start, in which case, unless you have the mind for it, you're going to screw yourself over. Seen obfuscated maps before. Not fun. Following input-output to nonsensical names is annoyance. Okay. And now, since we're going to be toggling these, we're going to need a texture toggle. So, good game. No, right there. Texture toggle 1 for each of the overlays. Now the toggles and the overlays are not going to be part of the little system I was referring to at the beginning, what we're building right now. This is just a visual representation of what's going on. Also means that if something goes wrong, we can actually see it. Though the more complex we make the visual, the more problems we can incur. So, kind of a double-edged sword there. Speaking of swords, no. Okay. And set the targets here. Toggle 2 goes to overlay 2, 3 to 3, eyedropper to 3, there we go, and 4 to 4. Excellent. Okay, so chooser. Already I see a problem with my initial idea. But I can make this work. I just have to modify some stuff around. So, on case 1, we want the first overlay to have its texture index set to 1. Now, if you aren't familiar with indicator strips, or making them, they have different colors assigned to them within the VMT, VTF multiple frames. And you can change them from to however many frames you have, and they are 0 indexed, so they start at 0 and work their way up. So if you have 4, like we have here for the math counter, you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 states. So, what the toggle is going to do is change which frame the game is going to display using the texture index for each state. So, on case 1, the first toggle is going to set it to 1, make it orange. Now I'm going to copy and paste that 3 times. And I'm going to have it set the other ones to 0. That way they stay blue. Don't really need to do that for the first one, but as it gets going, you'll probably have to clear them as you go on. Okay. Now I'm gonna shift left click, select them all, copy, paste right in, and do a mass change to on case 2. And this is when it's going to get a little hard to work with, but stick with it. There. So I just did a quick swap of 2 is the one I want to have orange, and 1 should be set to the blue. The 3 and 4 haven't been touched yet, so we can ignore them for right now. But going backwards, we're going to need them. And you could actually get rid of 4 if you want to optimize this a bit. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. Now, I already have the original 4 inputs already in the hammer clipboard, I guess you could call it. So I'm just going to paste it in again and set it to on case 3 and set toggle 1 to toggle 3 and toggle 3 to toggle 1. Click apply just to make sure, do a quick save in case hammer crashes. 2, 3, okay. And now the fourth case, on case 4, set toggle 1 to toggle 4, and toggle 4 to toggle 1. Now, the fun bit. Okay, so we have our incrementer here. This is going to refire every second. So go ahead and put 1 second in. And have it start disabled. We don't want either timer actually starting at the same exact time. That's just going to get a clash of inputs. And nothing may happen because it'll always be 0 or 1, whichever it levels out to. All hail the race condition! Okay, so every second that the incrementer fires, I want it to tell the math counter to add 1 to its current count. Now, for the decrementer, we wanted to subtract 1. So what I did was copy the add input or output, pasted it onto the decrementer, and change it to subtract. If we go to the counter here and check the inputs tab, incrementer add 1, decrementer subtract 1. Okay. Now we want the math counter to start enabled, so you don't need to worry about setting this unless you have a different FGD which defaults to a different setting, but doubtful. Now, when it gets a value, I'm going to have it tell the logic case, our chooser, to take an in value. Yeah. You don't need to set a parameter. What in value does is, well, actually, let me go over here and put it on screen for you. This is going to pass the current value of whatever is in the counter to logic case as a parameter. In our case, it's going to be a string. And the logic case is going to take that and compare it to the cases we have defined. And once it finds the right one, for example, it's going to get a value of 1, it's going to go to case 2, and the outputs tab is going to look for the case 2 outputs, there they are, and fire them all. Now, what I want to do is have a logic auto just kick things off. Make it look pretty. Oh look, it's in a form. Okay, so on map spawn, tell the incrementer to enable itself. I'm going to have that on a delay of 1 second because when this thing is going to start off, it's going to jump straight to the second overlay and turn that one orange. We want the first one to start off as orange. So I'm going to change that, and let me check the time, 14 minutes. Okay. I'm going to lose my train of thought while this is compiling, so quick blip and we'll be back. Alright, we're back. I did a little behind the scenes stuff while the first part of the video was compiling. In the logic case, I forgot to change the, let's see here, where was it? Reverse that. On case 2, it was missing an input, the change, it had a duplicate toggle output. I was missing one of them, so I corrected that. So just verify that you have them all. So if you sort by target, each case should send an output to that toggle. So you should have 4 entries per case, or 4 cases per toggle. 4 entries per case if you do sort by output. Which, the sort, you just click on the column top headers here, and it'll sort things for you. So to get back to logic auto, I'm going to set the math counter to 0 at the start. That way the first indicator dot is orange when the map begins. So on map spawn, on the counter, set its value to 0. Now I'm going to jump to the counter, and you can do this by selecting the output that you have going to the counter and clicking on mark. It'll select the entity that the output's going to and show you the inputs tab. So we came from here, logic auto on map spawn, set value to 0. I'm going to go to the outputs tab with the math counter, and I'm going to change the output I set. Originally I have on get value. This is a manual update. So every time you want this output to fire, you have to give the math counter a get value input, and it'll go. I want this to go automatically, so I'm going to change this to a different output called out value. So what out value does is any time, for whatever reason, the counter's value changes, it sends an output to the logic case, passing its current value to the case for the case to then determine which outputs to fire. Now, go over here, let's do a quick check. Incrementer start disabled, yep. Refire interval, check the other one, start disabled, yep. And it needs a refire interval. So let's go to refire interval of 1, so it'll be uniform going back and forth. Apply that. 3, 2, 1. Set value 0, and then start that. Now on here, I do have some outputs, additional outputs. So we're going to start at 0, go to 3, and once it hits 3, the maximum value on hit max, stop incrementing. So disable the incrementer, and then enable the decrementer. That way it starts counting backwards. And vice versa for when you get to the minimum value. Enable the incrementer, but disable the decrementer. Now thinking about it, if I set this to 0, it's probably going to hit. Actually, it might not hit it because it starts at 0. Initial value is 0, so it won't trigger the on hit effect because it's not changing any values yet. And the reason I had it set to 0 was just to force the out value. So that may or may not trigger it. I don't know. In fact, let's find out. I'm going to copy this, but delete it. And let's see if this starts on its own. Now, Portal 2 is closed, so you won't see the hijacking working. And in case you don't know what hijack is, if Portal 2 is already running and you do a compile that runs the game, hijack will make the game reload the BSP. Oh, there it goes automatically. And then start the map again. If you don't have hijack in your file parameters, you'll get a pop-up saying that the game's already running. Now, apparently if you do set it to 0, you trigger the effect even though you haven't changed the value. Well, you haven't literally changed the value from like 1 to 0, but the value itself has changed in memory. It's been refreshed. So, as you can see, it's firing of its own accord, running back and forth. And if you ever have problems with the input-output system, and you really can't tell what's going on, there are a couple things you can do. First, you can turn on drawing messages. So, hit the bottom, disable the decrementer, and then enable the incrementer, and disable the incrementer, then disable the incrementer, enable decrementer. You can do that. So that's a good visual thing. Now, that's not very helpful when you have a lot of input and output going on. So what you could do instead is turn on developer 3. Developer then parameter 3. Now, clear the console, and you look in the top left corner of the portal window. Once I exit the console, you'll see all the outputs spewed right there. And I'll stop it right. And this is all the output and input and output, including timestamps, going through for that duration of, let's see here, 3 seconds. Exactly 3 seconds. Wow. That's good. So you can use that to double check what's going on, and if you run into a problem like I did where some things would work sometimes but not others, you can copy this all, paste it into a text editor of your choice, and if you use Notepad++ or something similar that has a comparison plugin, you can then compare different input-output to each other. You'll have to remove the timestamp, but then you can see where lines are added or removed. Just a little tip. And with that, something basic, nothing very complicated, but you can do some pretty wacky stuff with this. For example, here a second ago map I made where the panels faded in and out. Now you didn't really see it that well unless you looked at the very edges of the panels, because that's where the alpha value was strongest. But I used this, pretty much this exact same setup, to fade things in and out. And with that, if you have any questions, post a comment, send me a PM. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. With that, goodbye.